Podcasts are absolutely everywhere these days. Everyone's got one. My friend's got one, his girlfriend's got one, your mum's got one. They're a big thing these days, and I'm kind of not surprised. Everyone's got some sort of idea and concept they want to put out into the world in some sort of form, and in this form it's audio. So if you want to get started with this and you don't want to break the bank, then it's best to look at some cheap but good quality microphones. And right here we've got 3, specifically the Rode PodMic. I'm going to be comparing this to these 2 here, the Zoom ZDM-1 and the PreSonus PD-70.
So I thought I'd start off with what is arguably the cheaper microphone of the 3. This is the Zoom ZDM-1, and it comes in a pack with this stand, the XLR cable I'm using, and these headphones. And before getting into the actual review, I just want to say that I'm going into PreSonus Audio Box i2 with a SE Electronics DM1 Dynamite Stick inline preamp going between the XLR cable and the well, it's an inline. Now, the Zoom ZDM-1 is actually a cracking little microphone for the price point. As I said, comes in a pack, sounds great, build quality is pretty damn strong. It is lighter than all 3 microphones, but it's built really well. Like it's entirely metal construction, so I feel like you're not really going wrong when you throw 99 quid at this thing. It's a dynamic microphone, super cardioid polar pattern. It's got a frequency response of 50 Hz to 18 kHz, and it's got 200 ohms impedance. You've got a good idea now of what it sounds like. It sounds really good. It's quite clear, and it handles plosives really well. This windshield, I would definitely say, is the best out of the 3 microphones. And for polar pattern's sake, this is what it sounds like talking directly into the top of it. So I'm just going to start talking around it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I've sang this microphone's praises enough now, I'd say, and I wouldn't be bothered using this microphone myself. I wouldn't be bothered listening to a podcast that someone used this, but when comparing it, you tend to sort of find that it's actually quite a muddy sounding microphone when you compare it to something like, say, the PreSonus PD-70. Well, this is what it sounds like. It's a lot more treblier. It sounds like I'm trying to speak French terribly. This is a much more trebly sounding microphone, as you can probably hear. It's a dynamic microphone just like the Zoom. It's also got a frequency response of 20 Hz to 20 kHz. Polar pattern's cardioid. It's also got a 350 ohms output impedance. As you probably guessed, you'll more than likely have to do quite a bit of de-essing for this microphone. I think at this point it's pretty much standard practice. And this is what it sounds like with the positioning for the polar pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got a very robust construction, complete metal build. If I take off the windshield, that's what it looks like. Yep. That's a microphone. What more do you want? But it definitely feels like it's built something like, your average Shure SM58. Those things can really take a beating, although don't recommend beating up your microphones. Now, the handling on the plosives on this microphone isn't terrible, actually. Comparing it to the Zoom, I think, just sort of beats the PreSonus just by a hair. So I do recommend the Zoom's windshield if plosives are your main concern. Now, let's go on to the Rode PodMic. This is the Rode Pod microphone. It sounds really good. I would say there's not a massive difference comparing it to the PreSonus. However, Rode makes some great quality microphones, so I'm not really surprised at the quality getting here. It actually goes for the same price that the Zoom goes for, but this comes separately, on its own, I should say. This is a dynamic microphone. It's got a cardioid polar pattern. Frequency response ranges from 20 Hz to 20 kHz and has a 320 ohms output impedance. It's a robustly built microphone. Once again, just like the PreSonus, built so it can take a beating. So the pickup pattern being cardioid, this is what it sounds like when I move around the microphone. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice thing about this, though, as well, it's got a built-in windshield, although I think it's the worst of the 3. So now, the ultimate test. One that every microphone will go through once in its lifetime. Or many times, pretty much almost every single sentence. It's the plosive test. And right here, I've got a little bit of a script. Not something I've written, but it's from a YouTuber called MattColbo. I messaged him and asked if I was okay to use some of the script for one of his videos. And it's about Peter Piper. Let's get this show on the road. We all know the tale. In 2003, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. But we should recall that this peck of pickled peppers that Peter Piper purportedly picked was never found at all. Preposterously, Peter was never pardoned or paroled, and through some legal rigmarole it was deemed that the peppers were not picked but rather stole. Now, professedly, they were pinched from a pretty preposterous pastoral property outside Pittsburgh, but who knew that through litigation, Piper would escape without any ramifications? That the public perceived this pepper-picking thief as a particularly puzzled and displeasing peeve. The pain plagued the population, plus the media tainted and stained his reputation and awakened disdain in every Pennsylvanian within an 80-mile radius. But like most places, these people go through phases. So eventually, the distaste and hatred for this raider faded. I want to touch briefly on the peripherals that come with the Zoom. This stand I'm using the whole time. It's a really good stand. It's withheld the weight of all three of these microphones, not all at once, obviously. These two microphones are considerably heavier than the actual Zoom itself, and it's handled it really well. It's a well-made microphone stand, and the XLR cable, well, it's an XLR cable. I mean, what else do you need it to do? It works. And with these headphones, I don't really know where to start when it comes down to mixing with them. They are about £40 I've seen separately on like some websites. However, monitoring your audio, yeah, they'll do. They will do just fine. They aren't really adjustable headphones though. So they are a bit elasticated here, so they will sort of shape to your head after a while, a bit like a new pair of shoes. Bit uncomfortable at first, but you get used to them eventually. So before I wrap up, I want to address whether or not you need a preamp for any of these particular microphones. And I've been using one for the entirety of this video. It's a 28 decibel boost preamp. So let me take that out and let's see what it sounds like. So this is the microphone without the dynamite stick in, and the input gain for the entirety of this video was set to about 1 o'clock. You probably saw earlier in the video. And right now it's actually set to maximum, which in my eyes, when I was doing these tests with all three of the microphones, it's the same with all of them. So I'm just going to use the Zoom as a for sake of argument. So when I was testing out all these microphones, I found that if you're this close to your microphone, it's not really a big deal. You don't really need one. And if you talk at a distance like this, like streamers tend to do, you can boost it in post. And this is what it sounds like. I'm going to boost it by 10 decibels. And it doesn't sound terrible. There's not really any hiss at all. You can EQ that anyway. And especially if you're in a sound-proofed room, sound-treated room, I should say, then you won't really have any issues with any hiss. Now, earlier I mentioned that the Rode has what I consider the worst windshield of these three microphones. And it would be a big deal if you were somebody who spoke this close to your microphone. Now, most people tend to talk with their microphones off on an angle. Now, since it's a directional microphone, let's move it there. And this is what you might sound like if you're this close to your microphone. So if you are going to go for the Rode, it's not going to be a big deal with plosives being an issue with the windshield, because obviously you're not talking right at it. And this sounds fine. I give it a slight boost. You do lose a little bit of audio when you're talking at an angle like this. So I'm going to boost the audio a little bit by about 3 decibels. Also, mentioning sound-treated rooms, most people these days tend to record stuff in their bedrooms, if you're a streamer, if you're a podcaster. However, there are some people who do use completely untreated rooms. Take, for example, Matt D'Avella. He does a podcast called The Ground Up Show, where he shoots everything in his lounge or his dining area, where he's using a hardwood table. He's a minimalist as well, so there's not a lot of stuff on his walls, and there's a wood floor as well, and still gets really good results. But it doesn't take away the fact that when you're using a microphone this close up, and especially a directional one, then reflections within the room you're using aren't really that much of a big worry. So you can get away without using a preamp and boosting your gain in post if needs be. But why use a preamp at all? Well, it's always recommended to use a preamp with your microphones, especially in a studio environment, and they just give you a nice boosting quality for a cleaner audio signal.
So that's that. 3 really, really good microphones, really good price, sound absolutely great. It's everything you want it to be. Won't break the bank and sounds good. But this is actually the 3rd time I've tried to shoot this end piece, because my personal opinion and personal ranking of these microphones has changed a bunch of times from the initial testing phase and comparisons up until, well, now actually. I just finished editing the whole thing and I've just thought I need to shoot this end bit again. And initially, to me, it was Rode, PreSonus, Zoom. But I feel like I was being too hard on the Zoom because it's the cheapest mic. So I watched back the video, listened to it a bit more, and thought, you know what? The Zoom's my favorite. And the original point of this video was to compare these two with this guy. To me, these guys win over the Rode. To you, you might be sitting there thinking, well, the Rode's the best one. go buy that one then. In the description, you'll find a link to all 3 of these microphones. Go grab one, they're a bargain. But I would love to hear what your personal rankings are. Just let me know in the comments, and even if you have any questions, put them down there too. In the description, there'll also be links to our socials, to our website. There'll also be daily deals we have over on Scan, not just in the Pro Audio department, but also in Pro Video, computers, and gaming. If you like this video, do give it a thumbs up, subscribe. There's loads more stuff to come. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and see you later.